when she heard a faint cry echoing from inside the well. She pulled up the ropes and saw a newborn baby staring right into her eyes. He looked so perfect, and Uche could not help herself as her heart began to race. She held him close to her beating heart and felt a joy that she had never felt before. Once upon a time, there lived a young couple who decided never to have children. Their names were Uche and Odili, and they got married on the condition that they would live their lives alone, never to share their love or affection with another. For years, Uche and her husband Odili lived happily in their little hut, not caring about the villagers or what they had to say about their childless marriage. They were the talk of the entire village, as the people found it hard to believe that two young people would get married and consciously decide to remain childless. Uche's family did all they could to convince them to have children who would continue their lineage, but Odili stood his ground and made it clear to them that they were never having children. Every evening, Odili and his wife ensured that they took walks around the village, gossiping and creating fun memories together. They even explored the village forest and shared stories by the fire at night. However, as the years went by, Uche began to feel a void in her heart. She loved her husband so much, but realized that something was missing from her life. Whenever she walked past the children playing on the streets of the village, she yearned to be a mother. It was a feeling that she could not explain, a feeling that kept her awake at night, imagining what life would have been with children around her home. The emptiness she felt was inexplicable, and Uche found it hard to talk to her husband about it. She knew how much he never wanted to have children and had no idea how he would react if she told him that she wanted to have a child. Uche decided to suppress her feelings, hoping that one day her husband Odili would also feel the same and want children. One evening, whilst on their evening stroll, they came across a friend who they had not seen in a very long time. She looked so excited to see them and asked how many babies they now had. This question rekindled Uche's interest in children, as she kept mute and allowed her husband Odili to respond in the usual way. She could hear the conviction in his voice, but knew deep within herself that she no longer shared the same ideology with her husband. As days turned into weeks, Uche could not shake off the longing in her heart. She decided to go to the village well one morning to fetch some water when she heard a faint cry echoing from inside the well. She pulled up the ropes and saw a newborn baby staring right into her eyes. He looked so perfect, and Uche could not help herself as her heart began to race. She held him close to her beating heart and felt a joy that she had never felt before. She looked around, hoping to find someone who might know where the baby had come from, but no one seemed to be around the well. Uche was so confused as she pondered on what to do with the baby. She knew that her husband Odili would never allow her keep the baby in their home, so she decided to figure something out on her way back home. She carried the baby in her arms and began to walk back home when a young woman approached her and pleaded for her help. Her name was Ifere, and she was homeless. Ifere narrated how she was accused by her auntie's husband of trying to seduce him moments after she rejected his advances. Her auntie, on hearing this, pushed her out of her house and warned her never to return, not minding the fact that she had nowhere else to go. Ifere told Uche how she had been sleeping on the streets for days, praying and hoping that she finds someone who would be kind enough to provide a roof over her head. She pleaded with Uche to allow her live in her home as a maid, promising to do anything in return, and Uche, in that moment, decided to allow Ifere to come live with her. She saw this as an opportunity to bring the baby into her home, posing as Ifere's child. Uche was so delighted to have finally found a solution to her problem. She told Efere that she would help her on the condition that she pretends to be the mother of the child, and Efere agreed as she thanked Uche for being so kind to her. A few minutes later, they arrived at home, and Uche introduced the homeless woman Efere to her husband, narrating how they met on her way back from the well. She pleaded with her husband Odili to allow Efere and her baby to stay in their home, and Odili, despite feeling uncomfortable with the idea, agreed as he could not send the homeless woman away with her baby, knowing that they had nowhere else to go. Uche was so excited as she could not believe how smoothly her plan worked. She made sure not to raise any suspicion by putting up a front which made it look as if she had no interest in the baby whenever her husband was around. However, once Odili left the house, Uche would spend all her time bonding with her baby, who she named Chibundu. Odili would return home to find his wife in high spirits. Their evening walks became more interesting, and Odili could see the glow in his wife Uche, who seemed to be a lot happier than before. Efere, on the other hand, took good care of their home and catered to the needs of the baby. Uche was so excited to have the baby around, though she had to constantly remind herself to act indifferent when her husband Odili was home. It was like playing a game of hide and seek, only that this time, one of the players was unaware that he was even playing a game. One day, Uche returned home from the market and realized that Efere and her baby were nowhere to be found. She searched the entire hut for them, but could not find them anywhere. Her heart raced as she wondered where they could have gone. Just as she was about leaving her hut to go in search of them, she saw them walking towards the hut. "Where have you been?" Uche asked Efere, who explained to her that the baby was so cranky, so she took him out for a stroll to calm him down. Uche was so delighted to see her son, as she thought that something terrible might have happened to him. A few days later, Odili called his wife aside to say that he was no longer comfortable having Efere and her son in their home and wanted them out of his house immediately. He revealed that their presence was affecting their marriage and that he could not sit back and watch it happen. Uche pleaded with her husband to be more considerate. She could not stand living without her son and knew that if Efere leaves their home, her secret would be exposed. So, she began to think of what to do. She approached Efere to suggest that Efere disappears into the night whilst they are all asleep, leaving the baby behind so as to create the illusion that she ran away and abandoned her baby in their home. Efere looked at Uche and laughed, saying that she had no plans of leaving their home. She told Uche that if anyone was going to be leaving, it was going to be Uche because she had no child for her husband Odili. Uche tried to understand what Efere was talking about. She asked her what she meant by her statement, and Efere looked her in the face and said that Chibundu was her son and that Odili was his father. Uche, in that moment, wished for the ground to open up and swallow her. She fell to the ground frozen as she asked Efere again if she was sure that Odili was the father of her son, and Efere revealed to her that Odili and herself had an affair that led to the birth of their son Chibundu. What Uche did not know was that Efere used some evil charms on Odili, which led to her getting pregnant for him. She even orchestrated all that happened that day at the well to enable her gain access to Odili's home, hoping to take up Uche's position as Odili's wife. The revelation shattered Uche's heart as she regretted her decision to sacrifice her happiness for all these years to please her husband, who she believed never wanted children. She waited for him to return and confronted him with the truth, which Odili could not deny. Chibundu, the boy she had grown to love, was truly her husband's son. Uche thought about how stupid she could have been to ever believe that a man would be fine with not having a child. However, what she could not fathom was the reason why Odili refused to have a child with her. The thought troubled her greatly as she packed up her bags and left their hut. Uche felt a surge of anger and pain. She could not believe that Odili would do such a terrible thing to her after all the years that they had spent together. Her heart heavy with betrayal as she wandered through the village alone. Efere was however excited to have won. She immediately began to establish herself as the new lady of the house, despite the fact that she knew that Odili had no genuine feelings for her. She believed that time would bring them together, but this did not happen, as Odili found it hard to forget about his wife Uche. He would scream out her name from his sleep and spend his days thinking about her and wondering where she could have gone. Odili had no idea where Uche was, as he searched the entire village for her but couldn't find her. Efere could not stand the fact that Odili was still deeply in love with his wife. She decided to pay her mother a visit to seek her help on the issue, and her mother, after listening to her plight, gave her a substance to put into Odili's drink, which would make him forget about his wife completely and love her instead. Efere returned home with the substance, determined to erase Uche's memory from Odili's heart. She waited until evening, when Odili returned home after spending his day searching for his wife Uche. Efere prepared his favorite meal and mixed the substance into his drink, hoping that this would finally secure her place in his life. As Odili sat down to eat his food, Efere handed him the drink with a smile. He took the cup from her and gulped down the drink. Efere was so excited as she could not wait for the charm to work. After a few hours, she felt a terrible itch all over her body. Her stomach ached badly as she found herself vomiting live scorpions from her mouth. She screamed out in terror and called for help, but Odili kept his distance as he feared being stung by the scorpions. What she did not know was that Odili refused to have a child because of a curse that had been in his family for a very long time. His mother died of the same curse when he was little, and Odili could not stand the thought of this happening to his wife Uche, hence the reason why he decided never to have children. What had happened was that so many years ago, Odili's great-grandfather made a pact with a very powerful spirit to ensure that his lineage prospered and were protected from an evil spirit that was claiming the lives of the villagers at the time. However, the spirit's protection came with a terrible price, as any woman who bore a male child for any man in his family was cursed to suffer a painful fate. This was the dark secret that Odili had kept from his wife Uche, hoping to spare her from the evil curse which had claimed the life of his mother and others before her. As Efere knelt on the floor weak, vomiting scorpions and scratching her entire body, a huge light enveloped her and sucked out her spirit. She now laid there lifeless, and Odili, filled with so much terror, rushed off to invite the village healer, who informed him that the curse, which had plagued his family for generations, had now claimed her life. The news spread around the village, reaching the ears of Uche, who now understood the reason behind her husband's decision never to have children. Although she still loved her husband Odili, Uche decided never to return, as she wanted children of her own and could not stand her children going through such a horrible fate in the future. She moved out of the village to a faraway place where Odili would never find her, because she knew that he would never stop searching for her. That was how Odili raised his son alone, as no woman in the village dared to marry him because of the terrifying curse. In the end, however, after so many years, Odili found a way to break the curse, freeing his son from the terrible fate that befell his mother. The lesson to be learned from this story is that evil always has an expiry date. You cannot take that which belongs to another and expect to enjoy it in peace. Try to treat people the way you would like to be treated, as only then would we live in a peaceful world. I hope you enjoyed the story.
Like, subscribe and leave a comment. It helps us grow our channel. I'll see you in our next story. Bye.